Hello, hello. Well, thank you all for joining on a Thursday evening. For those who are watching live, for those who are watching on recording, thank you for doing so. It's been so wonderful just to see the response to this series and the issues that we're covering on a weekly basis now, even more often sometimes, as in this week. And tonight we have a really special guest with Peter Chatzky. I'm really looking forward to talking with him and about his journey and decision to run for office, like the issues that he's hearing about from our district residents, and how he views healthcare and the importance of healthcare in our country right now, and what's at stake with the One Big Beautiful Bill, which Representative Lawler voted for at least once already, and is likely poised to vote for again. Again, a little bit about me. I think it's more important than ever that we know our messengers. It's easy to kind of flip on the TV and you hear talking point to talking point from people that are just kind of professionals at this, as Mr. Lawler was a communications consultant. But I really want to make sure that our district is really grounded in the issues, and from people who both know the issues and are coming from a place of being values driven and oriented. My name is Kevin McAvey. I'm a husband, father of 3. If you hear banging during the course of this live stream, it is because of one of those 3, and I won't even know which one. So we'll just enjoy that together. I'm a Bedford resident, a lifelong New Yorker, and I'm a state healthcare policy consultant. I work with a number of states across the country, helping them to work better, to deliver higher quality, more efficient and effective healthcare services, and it is a tremendous honor. Each week gives me an excuse to also share some photos of my kids, and I wanted to take the opportunity to give a shout out to Northern Westchester Indivisible, and all the organizations who are part of putting on last week's event in Mount Kisco. It was incredibly surprising. It was a tremendously well-attended event. If you were there, over 1,500, some saying even close to 2,000 people, and I believe it. It's the biggest event that I've seen in our local area to date. And it was, the most remarkable about it was not just the size of the event, but how positive and forward-looking it was. We want, and folks are really hungry for a new direction, and it was never more apparent than that gathering. I also got to see a number of the candidates who were there. This is a picture I took with Mike Sachs, who we previously interviewed, and it was great to see everyone out and meeting us and talking about why they're running, which is like something, again, we're going to be doing today. Again, the purpose of these conversations is to really engage residents of New York 17 in the political process, equipping our community with information about the policy issues impacting our families, our households, and our businesses, to help us identify the best person to represent us in Washington come 2026. We're doing this by discussing the issues, fostering community, and introducing the candidates. We've had the pleasure of meeting so far Beth, Mike, Kate, Effie, Jessica, Peter, and thanks to many of you getting in touch with John. We're going to be talking with John on John Sullivan on July 10th or 11th, I believe. I can't even see it there. So you'll look on social media, look on YouTube, and you'll see that invitation soon pending. You could view all of the interviews on Facebook as well as on permanently on YouTube. They run between 40 and 50 minutes over the course of the next few weeks. I'm going to be taking some of the clips from those, the highlights from some of those conversations, and making them widely available. And again, the reception has been tremendous. So thank you all for viewing, for sending in your questions and your comments. I also did not want today, June 19th, to pass without saying Happy Juneteenth. For those who don't know, Juneteenth is also known as Freedom Day, is a holiday celebrated this time each year over the past few years, especially to commemorate the effective end of slavery in the United States. On June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced that the more than 250,000 enslaved people in the state were free by executive order. This day is celebrated as a symbol of American freedom, including Black American freedom, and as a time for reflection, education, and cultural celebration. And in that spirit, I wanted to briefly talk about the structural health inequities that we're facing in this country at a time when we are all being encouraged not to talk about these pervasive structural issues that are impacting all of America by deeply impacting some of America at any given point in time. In our country, American financial structures and systems preserve and perpetuate the wealth gap between people or communities of color and people who are white. Black and Hispanic families in America are less likely than white families to own assets such as homes and businesses, or to have financial savings or retirement assets, and those who do have, on average, less valuable assets. Divergent financial endowments are a product of historical and residual structural and social barriers to wealth accumulation. For example, after the end of American slavery in 1865, federal and state policies and private sector actions have often created barriers to wealth accumulation for folks who've been previously subject to slavery, from sharecropping to Jim Crow laws to redlining to mass incarceration. Home ownership is a singularly important vehicle for accumulating wealth in this country, getting access to capital, establishing a stable household. And America's housing policies have also structurally embedded a legacy of uneven treatment to present financial means and community investment. This includes redlining, restrictive covenants, and residential contracts. Nationally, individuals who are Black still own homes at rates that are 30% points below those of people who are white, and Hispanic people at rates 26 percentage points below those who are white. And the homes owned by Black and Hispanic individuals are, on average, worth less. Thus, lower home ownership rates contribute to less asset growth and also contributes to the public educational resources available for families living in these homes in a system designed to fund school districts through residential tax dollars. Housing instability, lack of community resources are all strongly correlated with health outcomes. People with higher net worth at midlife are substantially lower at risk of premature death than people with less wealth. Today, individuals who are Black make up 13% of the American population, but hold only 2% of American wealth, and the average net worth of a white family is nearly 10 times greater than that of a Black family. Structural unequal treatment in the American justice system undermines familial and community stability and the health of individuals. Racial and ethnic bias has been well documented across America's criminal legal system, with individuals who are Black experiencing harsher outcomes in relation to police encounters, bail settings, sentencing lengths, and capital punishment. Today, individuals who are Black are incarcerated at rates 5 times the rate of individuals who are white and Hispanic, 1.4 times the rate. Previously incarcerated people are also more likely to experience a drug overdose, die by suicide, and die prematurely than people who have never been incarcerated. Access to quality healthcare that is not equitably available to all Americans is another in a long line of structural inequities many face in this country. America's healthcare system, designed by those in historical positions of authority, has a history of inherent bias that must be acknowledged and addressed to understand present inequities in the healthcare system and in health outcomes. Biases in medical practice is evident in numerous trials and experiments that the medical community has conducted across the 20th century. And research also documents that individuals who are Black and who are presently engaging the healthcare system continue to face implicit bias, prejudice, and stereotyping by medical professionals. For example, individuals who are Black by research, and the source is cited below, are significantly more likely to have medical professionals dismiss claims of pain or discomfort, misdiagnose a range of conditions, and withhold necessary treatment. Race and ethnicity, to say it out loud, are only 2 of the many factors that influence the structural barriers and opportunities one may face in this country for pursuing a healthy life. Other factors include gender, sexual orientation, disability status, gender identity, economic status, and geography, all of which may have similar or compounding effects. In New York, to call out a few statistics here, total mortality per 100,000 population in 2022. If you see in the column on the left, and I'm going to tick through these pretty quickly, but hopefully post the full presentation online. Individuals who are white consistently face better health outcomes than individuals who are African American or Black. Potentially preventable hospitalizations among adults, age-adjusted per 10,000. Individuals who are Black face twice the rates of individuals who are white. Asthma hospitalizations per 10,000 people, age-adjusted. Coronary heart disease mortality per 100,000 people, age-adjusted. Diabetes mortality per 100,000 people, age-adjusted. Female breast cancer mortality per 100,000 people, age-adjusted. Cervical cancer mortality per 100,000 females, age-adjusted. And finally, the one that kills me, infant mortality per 1,000 live births in this country, where individuals who are Black in this country and in this state have 2.5 times the rate of infant mortality than individuals who are white. I don't have all of the answers to how we address health equity, but I am certainly not going to stop looking for solutions or talking about the real sober reality that we experience the healthcare system in different ways based upon determinants that each of us faces and how the system is designed itself. I fervently believe that we will never find the answers that we need unless we are brave enough to objectively and soberly speak to them. And speaking of individuals who have been soberly speaking truth in their public service for the past 20 years is Peter Chatzky. Peter is a lifelong Westchester Democrat who brings a dual perspective of private business and public service to his campaign. He is the CEO of Napa Group, a software company he founded more than 35 years ago, and has been active in Briarcliff Manor politics for 20 years. He was first elected as mayor in 2003 and has served as deputy mayor, something I want to talk to him about, since 2019. He has won election to public office 5 times so far. He's entering the race for New York 17 Democratic nominee as an experienced, proven leader with the goal of flipping Congress, reversing the hatred and divisiveness of the current administration, and helping to reclaim the America we all deserve. With that, Peter, it's so nice to see you.
Kevin, thank you for having me. Thanks for doing all this.
Yeah, of course. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to have you here. And I know that running for office is not just saying, I'll do that and like putting up a website. It is a significant commitment of time and energy. And it is a whole other job. Could you talk to me, and especially given that it's not a job that you're entirely unfamiliar with, like how your arc of public service, like what your arc of public service looks like, and how it's brought you to this point where you're like, I need to run now for a higher office?
I formed my software company. I was a kid. I was 25 years old. I had an MBA in finance. I was just motivated I loved software, motivated to make a difference with software. I also loved finance. The two went together for me for some reason. And I started developing software for Wall Street firms. That spread very quickly, and I'm very fortunate. We had great clients.
Yeah.
I was very, very successful very early, and it enabled me to move out into suburbia, start a family. And interestingly, my first involvement was against Donald Trump. The very first thing I did in politics, Donald Trump, as you may know, built the Trump National Golf Course here in Briarcliff. And I came to the presentations. I heard Donald Trump explain this would be the greatest, most spectacular, the most perfect golf course he had ever been built.
Beautiful golf course. Big, beautiful.
The best ever. And never anything better until he built it. But I was very concerned as a resident, as were many, that it would drastically change the nature of Briarcliff Manor. His original plan was not sensitive to surrounding homes. It was not sensitive at all to the environment. Wanted to take down a lot of well-established trees. And he kept telling us this was the really the best plan. Nothing could beat it. So I brought together a bunch of neighbors. We pooled some money. We hired landscape architects. We hired land use attorneys, and we did our own presentation in front of them. And it was a pretty easy presentation. We said, he keeps saying his plan is the best. I'll tell you another. You decide which is better. I will tell you that the golf course that exists today, which is gorgeous and tremendous asset to the community, it looks a lot more like the plan my neighbors and I put forth than his original plan. It worked out great in the end, but that involvement caught the attention of a lot of people then in government in Briarcliff Manor. Everything is voluntary here. Our government's pure voluntary. So drafting people to get involved is a bit of a project. I was taken out to dinner a couple of times. I can be bought for food. And it just sounded very exciting to me. I had very young kids. I had, I think, a 6 and a 9-year-old. And I thought, they're going to be here a long time. This is a difference. This is a chance to make a big difference.
Yeah.
Not just for my kids, but for future generations. And the interesting, I ran for mayor. I think I was 42. At the time, I was one of the youngest elected mayors. And the interesting thing is that I was just doing it to make the place better than I found it. And 25 years later, doing the same thing. I'm fighting Donald Trump, I'm fighting Mike Lawler and all the minions that are following Donald Trump. And I'm still doing it for generations, future generations to come. I really believe that that is something that, especially if you're lucky enough to be successful and you can have the luxury of some free time, invest that in your own community and make things
I want to talk about this. I like this idea of the rematch, which is pretty appealing, but also something that's really distinctive about you as a candidate is your journey in building a private business in New York and running up against state laws and federal laws and private enterprises across the country and servicing their needs. Could you talk to me about a little bit about that journey and then what that has kind of given you in terms of perspective as a candidate?
Sure. The company, the software company, was named Napa Group, and it was homage to the Napa Valley wine that I was so fond of in my 20s. It was at the time it was Napa Valley Chardonnays. Much more of a red wine drinker these days. People grow. The business was centered in New York City, where all the banks were. Mm-hmm. And the city, New York's a challenging place. The city is especially. Probably the biggest issue was just the competition for talent. Mm-hmm. I was running a tech company. I was obviously competing with Microsoft, Google, Apple, all centered, all had offices in New York. But also, as we developed expertise in fixed income security trading, I was also then competing with the largest banks that were all staffing up over the years, starting to hire their own software developers, at much higher salaries than pay my people. So I really stressed sort of a life balance. I always had very good benefits. I always had flexible work from home policies. I always had very good healthcare I was providing my people. And, the costs in New York City are not unlike the same challenges that residents face in District 17. Mm-hmm. Housing is a big issue here. The price of housing there, it's rental income. Yeah. Healthcare is probably in the top 3 expenses of a business.
And I'm hearing that more and more from businesses and CEOs across the country, even if they were able to kind of designate the issue to their HR leaders previously or benefits leaders previously, especially in the past 5-10 years, it's become something that's grown unsustainably and folks are looking for answers.
And for those of us who run small businesses, if you have 1 or 2 claims, 2 people have hospital visits, the percentage of covered bodies looks explosive to a healthcare provider.
Yeah.
Wow, 30% of your covered parties had claims last year. Your rates go crazy. So we've seen steady increases, easily 10, 15% a year, some years. And, that's hard as a business owner. I try to absorb as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing, especially in New York City, third biggest cost probably utility costs are which also like here in Westchester and Rockland, Con Ed servicing all those districts, and it's phenomenally high. There's also some concern, we can get into this later. There are charges that the mechanism that they allocate expenses is a little unfair to suburbia of New York City, which has a lot more.
Yeah. So you were mayor back 2003 to 2005, if I'm remembering my dates, and then and then you came back, and now you're serving as deputy mayor. Like, what made you kind of take that leap? And then I want to talk about the rematch.
So it's an interesting. Let's talk about rematches too. I lost my reelection by a handful of houses. I was ousted by the father of the mayor I now serve. So 10 years, 15 years after I'd left office, and I continued to be involved and watched carefully, the relationship between me and the mayor who succeeded me thawed. It was not a friendly race when he unseated me, but the relationship got better. We used to eat in the same restaurants. We used to see each other all the time. And at one meal, he came over to me and said, "Are you following what's going on in Briarcliff?" I said, "Bill, it is horrible. It is. Government has to change. I did a good job. You did a good job. Things are starting to fall."
Yeah.
And we spoke about running together, to serve together again, to bring the community together. Two former warriors bonding. We had breakfast. We had lunch. We discussed it. And he said to me, "You should meet my son. He has more energy than I have. He'll be around more. I think you're going to like him." Steve, the mayor, the current mayor, and I met. We had a we got along unbelievably well. We drew straws. I won, so he became mayor, and I became mayor. He did do a lot of the crap I didn't need to do. I told him what I really wanted to focus on, among some other things. I wanted to look at our whole set of laws that we had in place in the village, many of which needed updating. And I really wanted to focus on communications. When I was out of office, what I really missed was knowing what was going on. The transparency was gone, and I really wanted to be involved. And he said, "Great, run with that. Do whatever you want." I introduced social media to government in Briarcliff Manor. And, I'm on Facebook all the time, literally every day, discussing issues with constituents. They're the most important.
We're here to serve them, right?
And it's amazing people forget that. And in Briarcliff, especially, it's nonpartisan. It's a small village. The government is people who live on your block. They're your neighbors. And more importantly, as in government, the people I'm working for are my neighbors. They're right there. They're right next to me. And you really have to have a good pulse of what's going on. You get that by talking and listening. As deputy mayor, with Steve's blessing, we've been very close partners. Even though he comes from a very Republican family, obviously a very liberal Democrat, I have personally written more than 70 local laws. Not a lawyer. I did study creative writing back in college, so it does come in handy. Those are things like zoning, housing, wetlands. We have probably the toughest wetlands law in the state. The credit for new business investments, tax relief for firefighters and seniors, tons of quality of life issues. These are all things that I would bring to Congress, the knowledge of how you develop legislation, how you make sure it's effective, how you make sure it's working. We've rewritten things when we've had to because they were too tough to implement. Those are things, it's an iterative process, and we've gotten very good about it. My wife, Susan, has always said, "You so enjoy this. You so enjoy helping people. You're really good at it. It's a little wasted in small town. You should be branching out." She really pushed me into this. I spent about 2 months calling everyone I could think of who has way more national political skills and political positions than I ever had. They all said this is a great idea. So, Trump came back into power. Republicans are all falling in line like lapdogs. And I thought, I fought that guy once, fight him again, take on Mike Lawler. I can win this.
And just as I think I would say, like, just as important as the policies that you put forward is how you identify those as solutions, because you actually, it sounds like you very much listened and believed in engaging with your neighbors in your community, regardless of party, to really understand what were the issues that were keeping people up at night or making life just that much harder, and then advanced actual policies that would address them.
I would say everything comes from that listing tour that I do all the time. It doesn't mean I'm going to say yes every time.
Yeah.
It's a lot like parenting. Your kids are going to get this. You can be a great leader. You can be an inspiration. You can solve a lot of problems. You don't always have to just do it because somebody asked for it. Because often there's a better solution than what they think the solution is, even though you have to hear what problem it is you're trying to and understand what you're trying to.
Yeah. And Peter got a glimpse of an unexpected guest, one of my oldest son, who came in just before we started live streaming. But I couldn't agree more, Peter. And in a recent article in Low HUD, I mean, you mentioned that you believe that you are the tough candidate who can win. And in particular, across your communications, you've been emphasizing your ability and your experience to build diverse coalitions to actually get things done. Could you speak a little bit about your strengths as a candidate and how that came together with the moment when you're just like, you solicit all this advice and you're like, we're going to do it?
So one of the unique things about Briarcliff Manor, caucus system, one of, I think, only 3 in the state. It's not
really, I didn't know that.
And because of that, everybody who's serving is volunteering and they are nonpartisan. We all run for board positions as at-large candidates, independent candidates. And because of that, I mentioned before that the current mayor comes from a fairly conservative Republican family. I've served with Republicans, libertarians, conservatives, Democrats, ultra-liberal Democrats, the whole spectrum. And I think because of that, I've learned that you really have to build coalitions. Doesn't mean you have to water down and compromise and give up all your values. You have to listen and understand what's the motivation of everybody who is not only agreeing with you, but arguing with you or disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I think, part of the key is that we often agree where we want to get to and we'll only disagree on how to get there. And I think if you can get to that point, the how you get there is a much easier problem than the disagreements about where do we want to go. And I have found that patience really helps, humor helps, really hearing what people are saying and accepting them for the position they're bringing to you, not shutting them out, not saying that's ridiculous, certainly never saying I disagree, so you're wrong. Minds can change. I think this combined with my experience as a small software company, very large institutional clients. I have dealt with JP Morgan, Citibank, firms, large German banks, firms that have a lot more financial resources. I've negotiated contracts where honestly I've had no leverage at all, but I have patience, and I have time, and I have perseverance. That grit helps me in battles where I'm David, not Goliath. And I think that's an interesting perspective also to bring to government, especially in a case where in Congress, you're certainly not the key decision maker for lots of things when you're going in as a rookie congressman. But you have to learn how to listen to people, work with people, hear people you're not going to agree with, convince people.
Yeah.
Using whatever techniques you can. What I found is really helpful to me. I talk about being very progressive. I probably mean it. Well, I mean it slightly differently than other people mean it. I see that the success is progress, and that's progress often in small steps, not deep swings to get you from here to there. Here to
Yeah.
um, I think and there's so much evidence of this as as you go for massive changes in politics. What happens is administrations change, you go too far, the pendulum swings right back in the other direction. And you're constantly going back. However, if you're making smaller steps toward a goal and you're getting to the goal you want to get, it's harder for people to push back.
Yeah.
Because people don't oppose those incremental changes nearly as much as they do sweeping changes in life. So I'm progressive because I believe in progress. And I, Briarcliff, we've had awesome experience, just small steps that over time have added up to major.
So that really resonates with me, and as I've spoken about with Beth and with Jessica and with Kate and others, Micah, Effie, who have joined. One of our goals right now, and certainly mine, is not just to win next year, but to bring more people along. So we're positioning ourselves as part of the People's Party to deliver for everyone solutions that actually work moving forward and supported by broad coalitions. And I think that's what you've experienced and helped to create in Briarcliff.
I think you have to be very inviting. Government has to be inviting, and certainly we don't have that today. In Briarcliff, we do have it. In Briarcliff, we heard there was way more concern for environmental issues. Green issues were way bigger. Sustainability. We formed 2 new committees. We got 15 more residents involved because there was space for them to come to and get involved. As more and more people were excited about, especially during COVID, expanding outdoor activities, better use of our trails and our parks, we expanded the rec committee. We added, another 5 people to the rec committee.
Yeah.
Between that and social media, everybody is brought in under the tent, and I think enjoying seeing. Everybody's brought into the kitchen and see how the food is made.
Absolutely. And so as you're traveling the district and listening now, it's a much broader world. The map has expanded dramatically from Briarcliff Manor. Tell me about the campaign so far. All of 2 weeks new officially, or week and a half?
Well, so I filed just a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
I started my listening tour earlier than that. And also because of my position in Briarcliff, I've always spoken to a lot of them. But hearing different things or expecting to hear different things from people, I really set out on a accord to just go to different spots, different coffee shops, different restaurants. And my wife will tell you this: I'm annoyingly friendly when at dinner or at lunch. We often just start talking to her.
I think I saw a photo of you floating online about a pancake breakfast and.
Okay, I'm kind of known for a lot. I have a sweet tooth. It's well known. People bring me cookies if I just mention I would like some cookies. My door. I love small towns, by the way.
So what are the issues that you're hearing as you're going around?
What I'm hearing, and there's so many issues that I lump them together. What I'm hearing in general is anxiety and anger. And those are slightly different things, but I think the anxiety comes from there's a lot of pressure about just the cost. That's true here. It's true in Rockland.
And what was that? I think you cut out for just the keyword.
I'm sorry. It's the cost of living.
Cost of living. Yep.
You had mentioned affordability, but it's different things for different people. It's healthcare, it's housing, it's utilities. Some of this we have tackled locally. It's the same thing in Briarcliff. It's interesting. Even in Westchester is a wealthy community, but people have anxiety about being able to afford to stay in their homes. In Briarcliff, we will, in the next 3 years, we're going to add probably 200, 250 new homes, and those are specifically diversity of housing options. So it will include studio apartments, it will include 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. I expect there will be 2 and 3 bedroom townhouse units, maybe some more 4. Not everybody wants, a little picket fence, single family home. You need to offer a wide range of choices. It gets new young couples, young families coming into the community. It provides for an aging generation to remain in the communities where they have spent 30, 40 years. It's the price of staying in your home is a luxury a lot of people. We need to do a better job with housing.
Yeah.
Utilities I'm surprised that
talk to me about
is mentioned. We don't often think about this, right? We think about I know my own kids as they moved out, first calls we would get, how much are you paying for in the house? How much do you pay for air conditioning? How much because people don't think of all the extra costs of utility prices are Con Ed, as you know, probably there's a lot of movement, a lot of complaints about Con Ed's ratcheting up costs. I've learned a lot about this in government. Briarcliff is one of the communities that's actually suing. We're in the middle of a lawsuit with Con Ed over its proposed price increase. There's also a formulaic problem where when they do increases, they're not evenly allocated between New York City and Westchester. There is a feeling that Westchester may not.
The short end of the stick.
Short end of the stick, exactly. So we've been fighting with Con Ed. It's something that I think has to be tackled in probably on a federal level with utilities. One of the big issues, and I get this, they ask for more and more money when maintain aging infrastructure. And this is a problem in all sorts of communities because people get very penny wise, pound foolish about budget. Deferred maintenance always costs more than keeping things well maintained. Always. And I think we see this nationally, we see this locally. It's one of the things I would move to make sure Congress is doing a better job of. We need to take care of critical infrastructure. Our roads are falling apart. 9A here in Westchester, total mess. Briarcliff started a massive public relations campaign to get people to write New York State legislators and say, this has to be addressed. We got attention to this. It's going to be, it's going to also need federal money. It's a massively large project to completely redesign a road that's carrying 45, 50,000 people. Cars a day. I think taking care of infrastructure, whether it's literally roads, bridges, many of which are in very perilous shape throughout the country, or the new infrastructure required for modern technology. AI requires a lot of power, requires a lot of utility lines that are going to have to be put in place, and I think it requires a deep understanding of the value of that and making a case that there are things that cost money that are actually investments, and they're going to spur the economy, and they're going to reflect where the jobs are, and we have to be looking at that because spending money is not a mistake if it's wise investments carefully managed. It's going to build for the future.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with so much of that, and I just want to call out 2 points, and then I want to pull on the thread of healthcare, of course. But I had a professor once, Susan Christofferson, and she was a wonderful kind of thought leader nationally on urban development and city planning. And she would always say, like, America isn't great at kind of upkeep and kind of doing the year-to-year investments, but we do when a crisis happens, we are pretty good at responding to it and often moving in new ways. But
we want to be proactive, not reactive.
Exactly.
Actually, it's a big
then
mistake.
and
Not to cut you off, but the second thing I heard, anxiety, and then there's anger. And the anger is really simply just government is not listening to us, it's headed in the wrong direction. It's no longer representative. You're hearing that all over District 17.
Yeah.
So,
and you're also mentioning just kind of this idea of healthy aging and having a really sustainable, robust housing infrastructure for folks who are like raising families, for folks who are moving towards retirement, for folks who want to have their kids come back, which is something that Kate mentioned a few interviews ago.
Yeah, there's a lot you learn from being in government, dealing with issues and dealing with people. And I think small communities are just a microcosm of what goes on in the larger. So it's been very valuable.
So healthcare, I think that is a major component in the affordability equation. You've mentioned it as something coming up when you're talking to families across the district. You also mentioned it as something that's on the mind of businesses. Representative Lawler was the deciding vote in President Trump's big, beautiful bill, which will disproportionately hurt New York, kicking up to 1.5 million New Yorkers off of their health care and costing our state healthcare system at least $10 billion annually, likely resulting in the shrinking. We're starting to see news articles about it, the reduction in services, and to the extent that healthcare providers need to and the markets allow, potentially even rate increases for everyone. Healthcare, how are you viewing it? What are you hearing? How do you view Representative Lawler's vote?
First of all, the big bogus bum bill, whatever it's called, 64% of Americans are against it. 64%. So right there, if I'm in Congress, I'm saying, maybe we should look at this a little more carefully before we pass it at 2, 3 in the morning without reading it. 83% of Americans have a favorable view of Medicaid. And, as you know, $800 billion would come out of Medicaid in that big, bad, boring, boastful, whatever it is.
Big old piece of
bastard of a bill. Let's just call it.
There you go.
Word. New York State, I believe this number is right, receives $56 billion a year through Medicaid. That draconian slash of Medicaid, there's no representative in New York that should be fine with this. I don't know what they're thinking about. There is, I think, some misunderstanding about Medicaid, how it works, who it applies to. Westchester, pretty wealthy area. I believe it's 1 in 4 Westchester residents receive some kind of benefit through Medicaid. In Rockland, it's huge. I believe it's 44% or so, and it's 46% of children in Rockland rely on Medicaid. This is not something anybody representing this district should, in good conscience, ever vote to reduce. And it's at-risk residents. It's often elderly, it's developmental disability, children and adults, seniors living in nursing homes. I have personal experience with Medicaid. I had a good friend who's 50 years old, and this, people need to be aware of this. My friend Alex, 50 years old, had a great job in marketing, had a congenital heart condition, and he developed an illness and got too sick to work. She couldn't pay for her medical care. She was bankrupted. Medicaid was the only way that she got to a hospital. She eventually needed a heart transplant. Process by which she had to prove her eligibility for a heart transplant. It took so long that even though the heart transplant was totally successful, her other organs had started to fail because it took months for the process to complete. She passed away after a successful heart transplant. And this is a woman who had a house, had 2 kids, had a job. She had to give up her job because she was too sick to work, and there was no social safety net. My wife, Susan, before I met her father also sick, required nursing home care. Susan could not have continued to work, provide food, family, housing on her salary without her father being eligible for Social Security, disability, as well as Medicaid. That that literally, I know two people
Yeah.
in my own immediate life that were beneficiaries of this. And
Yeah.
I think the notion that it's just poor people, just immigrants taking advantage of the system, or just is ridiculous. It's everyone. It's a vital part of the social safety net.
I couldn't agree more, Peter. And I think something that our Republican colleagues right now in Congress are presently getting so wrong. It's like when you fly into a cloud and you come up upside down. Is you shouldn't have to work in order to get health care. So many of us need health care in order to work.
It's exactly backwards. I agree.
Mm-hmm. And I really do believe and would love to see the day when every American has access to affordable, quality health care. It should not be a luxury good, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But I wanted to close here. This has been, like, we've covered so much ground, and it's been so great to kind of dig into some of these issues with you. But from your public sector experience, you did mention something that really caught my attention, which is the idea of how to engage people in politics. And if you were elected to be our representative in New York 17, or if you were advising the eventual nominee, like, what would you say, like, are the ways that we should be as a party engaging with people in different ways? You brought social media to local government. Is that the way? Like, what other tactics should people be using?
Yeah, listen, you absolutely have to go to where the voters are.
Mm-hmm.
Go to where the residents are. You have to reach them wherever they're getting their information. Republicans are actually doing a pretty good job on this. I think Democrats have to do an even better job on this.
Mm-hmm.
The takeaway message that I would tell everybody is we only have to flip, Congress has to flip half a dozen seats. Mm-hmm. And the entire federal government will change. We'll have a different set of checks and balances. We'll be restoring checks and balances. We won't have an executive branch that's running unfettered, doing at the whim of Donald Trump, doing whatever he wants, with just Republican lackeys saying yes, yes, yes. You'll have a whole new body, a whole, equal 1/3 part of that government that's going to jump in there as a check. It's a vital thing. We could say goodbye to Mike Lawler, which might mean goodbye to Mike Johnson, which would mean goodbye to just Trump running rampant.
Yeah. You mean checks and balances in our government?
A great idea. Also, the whole constitutional thing.
Yeah, that is something that. Yeah.
Listen, I don't want to sound like too much of a crazy lunatic liberal, as Lawler would call us, but I think that constitutional thing is probably more important than their.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We want to bring that back. It worked for 200.
I think it's the foundation on which everything else is built, and which we each enjoy our freedoms, which sometimes we might take for granted today. So can you talk a little bit about your plans from here? And if folks want to get in touch with you and want to be part of the Chatzky campaign, like, how do they get in touch with you?
I am very reachable. Go to the website, chatzkyforcongress.com. You can email me at peter@chatzkyforcongress.com. Happy to take phone calls at any time. My number's all over the place. I don't want to give it out on your show. A simple Google will come up with my cell phone. No, it's out there. I will talk to anybody. I want to listen to you. I want to work for you. I want to work with you. And I think together we can make a real difference here. We can take back our country. We can give us the America we all deserve.
Peter, it was so wonderful to get to meet you and talk with you. We're going to have, I'm going to talk about what we're going to be doing in a little bit, but hopefully this is not the last time we'll get to talk and engage and dive into some of the issues that you're most passionate about and knowledgeable about and want to solve for the district. Thank you for taking the time on a Thursday night.
Well, thank you for doing this for all the candidates. It's a great forum, and we need more people to get the information out, no matter who eventually gets elected.
That's
right. And I need to go have dinner.
Okay. It's good to see you, Peter.
Thank you.
Talk soon. So everyone, again, thank you all for joining. That was Peter Chatzky. If you are interested in reaching out to him, his website address is here. He shared his email address And I am really excited to talk about who we're talking to next. I'm actually going to have two friends on our program to talk about healthcare on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. So this is kind of Saturday morning cartoons for people who are really interested in public policy. We're going to have Anthony Wright, who's the executive director of Families USA, and Elizabeth Benjamin, VP of Health Initiatives of the Community Service Society of New York. These are two institutions in our community to talk to us and deliver the real hard facts about what's at stake for healthcare in the one big, beautiful bill, which Representative Lawler has already voted on and is going to have the opportunity to again make the decision about whether he's going to vote to protect residents of our district in New York State or vote in the way that Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana would like him to vote. We'll see. But on Saturday, we'll get some real hard facts with Anthony Wright and Elizabeth Benjamin. And finally, I'm really excited to announce, I did not expect to do this. So my goal originally was to have a series of conversations with the candidates, introduce them all to you and to us to make sure that they have an ongoing referenceable video cast to introduce people who are not going to necessarily always be able to attend some of these rallies or meetings. Thanks to you and by the suggestion of some of the candidates, we are going to do a second round of interviews. As of 6 p.m. tonight, at least 5 of the candidates, including Beth and Jessica and Kate, have all agreed. And Peter, I'm hoping that you're with us. Maybe that'll make 6 so far. You got a thumbs up from off stage to talk about issues that they have particular expertise in and where they have disagreements with our current congressman about. We're going to take a couple of weeks off in July because I need it. And but we're going to come back in August with those conversations. So more to come, a lot to do, a lot to talk about. And we are 1 year out right now for the Democratic primary in what will likely be one of the nation's most hotly contested seats. The Democrats in this country have historically been the People's Party. And I have no doubt and will do everything I can to make sure that this is the people's primary, where everyone in our district gets to hear from their potential representatives and ultimately cast their votes in the primary and then next year in the general. Thank you guys for joining. It's been really wonderful to see so many of you online. Keep the comments coming, and we'll talk soon.